Sam Raimi has never stayed in one lane. Across his career, he's moved through genres in ways very few filmmakers manage without losing their identity. He's made a devastating crime thriller with A Simple Plan, a stylized western with Quick and the Dead, and one of the most underrated baseball films of the last few decades with For the Love of the Game. He helped define modern superhero cinema with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man trilogy long before the genre became industrialized. And before any of that, he gave us Darkman, a pulp-driven genre hybrid that still feels like a blueprint for much of what came after. But no matter where Raimi goes, he's ultimately defined by what happens when he returns to horror. The Evil Dead announced his instincts immediately. Evil Dead 2 refined those instincts into controlled chaos, and Army of Darkness pushed horror into pulp fantasy without losing its teeth. And Drag Me to Hell proved that even decades later, Raimi could still deliver horror that was cruel, funny, and unapologetic. When Raimi works in this space, horror never stops being safe. It becomes physical, aggressive, and unpredictable. And Send Help doesn't try to disguise what it's doing. It's a Sam Raimi horror movie built around a simple, uncomfortable idea. You're stranded with your boss and the history that comes with you. From the moment that setup clicks, this stops feeling like a survival story, and you're not thinking about shelter or technique, you're thinking about power, you're thinking about leverage, and you're thinking about all the things you've learned to tolerate instead of confront. The movie understands that immediately. The setup itself is familiar. A plane crash, two survivors, a deserted island. We've seen variations of this before, and what Raimi understands is that the danger isn't the environment, it's the relationship, and more specifically, how fast old roles reinsert themselves once everything else disappears. Rachel McAdams plays Linda, and she's essential to why the movie works. She's socially awkward, clearly capable, and has spent 7 years doing the work without receiving recognition she was promised. And when leadership changes, the future vanishes. That's not just background, that's the emotional engine driving everything that follows. The business trip puts them on a plane, the crash strands them together, and what's striking is how little actually changes. The office is gone, the company is gone, the systems are gone, but the hierarchy survives almost instantly. He still behaves like a boss, he still questions her decision, he still expects authority to matter. And Linda steps up immediately, not because she's trained to obey, but because helping is in her nature. She knows how to function under pressure. She knows how to solve problems. And there's something else pushing her as well. She wants to prove she's capable. She wants to show strength. She wants the person who has always underestimated her to finally see what she's worth. And Dylan O'Brien plays the boss with entitled frat boy confidence that feels very familiar. The kind of confidence that reads as leadership until real work is required. And once survival becomes the priority, the gap between authority and usefulness becomes impossible to ignore. That's the first real impact of the film. Power doesn't disappear in crisis, it tightens. From there, Send Help makes its intentions clear. This isn't about nature being unforgiving, it's about people repeating the same behavior even when the structure that rewarded it is gone. There's no HR, there's no emails, there's no Slack, no language about culture or teamwork, just scarcity, entitlement, and control. The workplace reduced to its core instincts. Linda adapts, she provides, she keeps them alive, and yet the power struggle never stops. Even when authority no longer serves as purpose, it still demands obedience. Leadership doesn't vanish when it becomes useless, it becomes defensive. What makes the movie unsettling in the right way is that Linda doesn't just survive this environment, she excels in it. And for the first time, her competence carries real weight. For the first time, her value can't be dismissed. And for the first time, she has leverage. That's where the story deepens. The question stops being how they get rescued. It becomes why she would want that rescue at all. This is where the corporate metaphor clicks without being underlined. Capitalist logic doesn't fade when systems collapse. It intensifies. Who produces, who controls, and who takes credit? Who deserves resources? Survival becomes justification. Productivity becomes morality. That's why the island never feels like the antagonist. Nature isn't the problem here. People are. People who recreate power games even when the corporation itself is gone. Hoarding, gaslighting, control disguised as leadership. This is also where Sin Help separates itself from Drag Me to Hell. In that film, punishment comes from the outside. A supernatural force delivers judgment. Fear is externalized. Guilt has a literal form. Here, punishment is interpersonal. The system isn't abstract. It's two co-workers deciding who eats and who doesn't. And capitalism isn't a demon dragging you under, it's a boss who keeps asserting dominance even when the title has no function. The film circles a few ideas without turning them into speeches, and meritocracy as a myth, competence valued only when it benefits power, and a version that doesn't lead to fairness but resentment. Labor versus ownership becoming painfully literal once survival is on the line. This isn't entirely new ground. Once the film settles into the island life, comparisons to Triangle of Sadness are inevitable. The film explored class inversion and survival from a broader, more observational distance. Send Help is the pressure cooker version. Smaller cast, faster escalation, less distance. They work well together. And what gives Send Help its edge is Raimi's tone. He never treats these ideas with reverence. He delivers them through cruelty, humor, and discomfort. You laugh, then you realize you've seen this behavior before. Not in movies, in offices, in industries, in careers. The gore leans digital at times, and there are moments where it's noticeable. It doesn't derail the film, but it can pull focus briefly. But what carries everything forward is Raimi's rhythm. He knows how far to push a scene before twisting it just enough to keep you off balance. At the end of the day, this feels like Sam Raimi back in his element. Not because it's nostalgic, but because it's confident. And confident in being nasty, confident in being funny, confident enough to let the ideas exist without sanding them down. This feels like Raimi back in his element. And I'm curious to see how this all plays out for you. Appreciate you going on this film journey with me. As always, be real.
Let's not forget, I'm your boss. You work for me.
We're not in the office anymore, Bradley.